day to you, fine friends and fellows.
Good day.
Good day.
Can we just like kick out like, hey, or how are you? And just start screaming good day at each other in the streets?
Just like angrily shouting into people's face. Well, no, not in, you know what? 6 feet of distance. Keep that mask on. Pandemic's not over. We're almost there.
A furrowed brow while you scream into your mask. Good day.
Good day.
Actually, you know what I really love in movies when like someone says good day, but it's like kind of got like an edge of an insult to it. Like when the person has said something stupid and the other person is like, good day, and like walks away. It's so foreboding.
Yes, it's that perfect use of the other end of the phrase. And also there's something very Willy Wonka about that, I think. Good day, sir. You know?
Yeah, no, I like that. That's true. Right? I like this. I like that this is the opening of this podcast today.
It has to be. Fate has demanded it. Apple Podcasts estimates there are between 750,000 and 2 million podcasts in the world. However, there's only one that matters, and it is this one. Colette and Matt have entered the chat. I am your co-host, Matt Silverman, here as always with the titular Colette Bennett. How are you?
Good day. I'm sorry. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
A little wonky in the mood, but obviously fine otherwise.
Good. We're here to talk about video games, the most important topic in the history of human civilization, and it's going to be pretty freewheeling show. We don't have any. There's no plan. There's no plan.
We're just going to show up and be us, which seems to always work.
It works. Yeah. It works for us. I mean, listenership is in the toilet, but we're having fun. I'm just kidding.
I shouldn't be cackling.
We desperately appreciate everyone whose ears are tuned into this fine program today. You are part of our community. We love talking with you. So be sure to hit us up in the Discord, email, all those places. We will talk about it at the end of the show, or just skip ahead into those show notes and get in touch. But for now, what's going on and what video games are on your mind right now?
Well, I'm just going to come out of the gate with the thing that I think, a lot of gamers have probably had thoughts about this week. And it's that the Activision Blizzard soup continues to heat up. And that is... I feel somewhere torn between like grab your popcorn and like, well, yeah, like, of course, Bobby Kotick is an asshole. Like white men in games tend to often be assholes.
Right.
But like, go ahead.
I'm hoping the trajectory, at least the news that I have been tangentially following, is that the arc of justice and business and social awareness and activism is bending towards justice is too firm a word just yet, but that the company is suffering. The people who are responsible for this are feeling the pressure of the law and the consumer advocacy that's going on. We're not nearly done with this debacle yet, but perhaps that is what where we're headed. Do you agree based on what you're saying? Yeah.
What I was actually going to say a second ago is that I kind of hope that this could be a little bit of like a Me Too moment for the industry.
Totally.
And, I think because it is a huge industry, but I think because it is a different type of industry than the movie industry, I'm not sure exactly how it'll roll out. But the fact that it's ongoing, that it continues to kind of get worse, that, places like the Wall Street Journal are digging deep, outlets, I should say. But like, I definitely am seeing a lot of back and forth to the point where I feel like the only way to kind of save face in the company, and I think at this point it's a little late, is to take some significant action because Bloomberg had a piece up today about PlayStation actually criticizing like Activision's response to the crisis. And and I was just like, man, this conversation keeps getting like bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, a couple days ago on Twitter, Activision was like, saying we're taking action, we're listening, like we make these commitments to, put this money, $250 million into representation, 50% increase in women and non-binary individuals. Okay, cool, fine. All that's nice. But like, I think I think it's kind of almost like a little less like, okay, cool, you can promise those things. But like, to me, one of the big issues is that it feels like these changes never happen unless people are caught.
Yes. And to your point earlier, that feet are held to the fire by consumers, by journalists. Journalists continue to do their job. That this is not, Me Too did not fade away because it kept getting attention and kept getting coverage. And that is all of our responsibility. Like as a society and as a government, as a journalism industry, we need to continue to peel back the layers so that it does not disappear and then people forget about it. And it seems like that is hopefully happening here. I love your Me Too analogy. I mean, Me Too was about all industries. It was about all victims and women. And so video games are not exempt from that movement, but this is a good, hey, remember that important thing that we all came together about? It's still happening. So let's get into it again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's, of course, so far past due. And I am glad to see these uprisings in general, like happening in the world. Like, I'm not happy about the stories that lead to them, but I'm also, having worked in this industry, I'm really not surprised. And it's nice to see a lot of their workforces, like, there was a walkout yesterday. It's nice to see, big numbers of employees like walking out and, like picketing and basically like demanding more equitable treatment for staff. And, I do think that those things need to happen. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how this affects the overall landscape, because I feel like it's been a long time since something quite this big happened, but also that this has been bubbling, because before this happened, there have been several other, stories surfacing about, oh, there was harassment at this company, there was harassment at that company. And now this is like, okay, it's the big one,
because it never quite, little smatterings here and there are very important and must be taken seriously, but they're so easily swept away by the media cycle, by corporations saying, oh, we're going to take care of that, or we're going to ignore this and pay. But this just kept coming and coming. And to your point, kudos to the folks, to the employees who are walking out or who are raising their voices or banding together, because that reinvigorates the news cycle around this again. The attention span is so short in this noisy world we inhabit. We need you to keep making that noise, whoever can do it. And obviously people at the companies affected are the ones who can make the most noise during these critical moments. So, but we also have federal lawsuits or federal investigations happening. It's the real deal. It's the real deal happening here. So we will, of course, be keeping an eye on it, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And I have to say that, when it first started, it was around the time that the Diablo 2 remake came out. Yeah. And I had already pre-ordered it, as I think I said on this podcast. So I was like, oh, I've already got it. I'm just going to kind of play it. And then with, a little time went by, and I just kind of found myself slowly kind of not playing it as much, or not playing it really that much. And I'm kind of at a point now, which is insane for me to even think that, like, I don't really think that I can like go buy Diablo 4 and be like, yeah, cool. Like, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
But it's taken me a while, because it's been such an ingrained franchise and such a joyful part, the Diablo series, of my gaming history. But I think it's gotten to a point,
This is a complicated thing, and I'm not quite sure where I net out on it. So I am interested in your take. And it's a couple things. One is, at least in recent headlines, and you got to look at the long tail. So like week to week, if a stock is up or down, like I don't know that means much, but I think a combination of consumer unrest and most likely shareholders being like, what the fuck is going on over there, corporation? That uncertainty has led to a significant hit on the stock price. Now, that can certainly go up or down. I don't know that there's a statistically significant amount of people boycotting the products to cause that. I would probably guess no, which is, it makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel like no matter what I do, there's no way for me to do this. And then the other discussion that I'm having trouble with is like, oh, if you boycott the product, then the developer, the good people, and there are many of them who put their blood, sweat, and tears into making this amazing game, they're going to suffer. And I just don't know enough about the compensation structure of art directors and programmers and whatever. It's like, I don't know. In every job I've worked, I get paid a salary, and then whether the thing did good or bad, my paycheck is the same. So it's like the only person I think you're hurting by not buying a product is the CEO and the shareholders. You know what I mean? So in that structure, yes, don't buy the product if you are not comfortable with that. But I don't know for sure what is the actual dynamic. Do people get bonuses? Like we've actually discussed in our Discord, like some people saying, oh, if a game gets a high Metacritic score, then people get bonuses, or if it reaches X number of sales, people get bonuses. And and I guess I would argue, like, I don't know what the compensation structure is for the average Activision employee, but I would argue that like bonuses based on sales or performance or reviews is trash, because you, Joe or Jane programmer, have no control over what your company does or how much marketing budget they spent or what the landscape of the gaming ecosystem is at the time when the launch happens. You could do the best work of your career, and if Activision blows it at the 2-yard line, you don't get a bonus. So that whole idea sucks if that's true. I just don't know if it's how things are today. And if they are like that today, I wish that we would get away from that that bonus structure. In all industries, people should be compensated for doing work, not for whether or not a product is successful, with the exception of like, oh, I have stock in the company, or oh, I'm a co-founder or whatever, and my compensation is connected to the profitability of this. Let the executives worry about that. Jane programmer should not be compensated thusly, in my humble opinion. What the fuck do I know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's it's a wild time. It's a wild time. But I feel like there have to be uprisings for there to be major change. Yeah, like it's not like a small thing happens and like it's like, oh well, cool, everything changed. Like the way I see it, and I was thinking about this recently. It was probably like, I don't know, maybe like 7-8 years ago when like the body positivity movement was really raging, and I was at CNN at the time. So I did a lot of writing about it. And I noticed that slowly companies started adding like larger women and men into their, especially women, into their like advertising, for fashion, and like, Target did it and Old Navy did it, blah, blah, blah. But like some of it definitely felt like token, like, tokenism, we're going to put a size, 14 here. And it's like, okay. And at first I was like, well, that sucks when you could sense that. But then with time, I started to realize that it became more consistent, that I was seeing a bigger range of sizes. And then I thought, regardless of whether a company is forced to do it or not, because just to save face, there still are young women, and for that matter, young men, who are seeing those images and going, oh, that looks like me. Whereas like in my upbringing, that didn't really happen, So like, I think that has an effect on people. So, conversely, I think in this situation, it might be that, people that are maybe kids now that dream about going into games, by the time they get to the games industry, maybe the game industry will be a better place. Potentially somewhat could be like by force, I guess. But at the same time, I'm like, well, in the end, does that really matter?
But I don't know. By natural, call me a silly optimist, but the world at least in like, human generation, talk to me in 1,000 years, we might be in a complete, the human civilization will be radically different, obviously, but in the time scale of our grandparents, our parents, us, our children, and our children's, like the arc of history bends toward fairness and progressiveness. The world is more peaceful. The world is more people. There are obviously major systemic problems in our world, but like it's the best world it's ever been, and it is getting better despite the negativity in the headlines in the world. So, like, if this stuff was happening 50 years ago, not only would it not be changing, it wouldn't even be talked about. And I like that you bring up tokenism, because I don't remember where I was discussing it. I think it was on another show, but it was, and I certainly was not the one talking about it. Someone else was making this point that like tokenism is this interesting speed bump of like there's social pressure toward inclusivity, and then the world or the media or companies, as you said, raise their hand and like, oh yeah, we'll be more inclusive and progressive, and they put that token person in there. And then it's like, it's not quite enough. We have to sort of generationally or systemically get over that little tokenism speed bump, where then on the other side of that, it's like, oh, everyone's here. And I think who we were talking to was making a point of like, how like historically in media you would cast like I don't know, an Arab person as a villain or a Russian person as a villain, like that you'd create negative stereotypes around those people, and then we had to stop doing that. We should stop doing that. And on the other side of that, it's like, oh, this person just happens to be this ethnicity, and they're the bad guy or the bad, and it doesn't matter that they are, because it's not a reaction to tokenism. It's like, oh, we're all just here, so anyone can be anything, and we're not hung up about it. That is the world that I'm excited to see. I'm excited for my kids, to your point, to inhabit that world where it's like, oh, wait, what? Wait, this is how could it have been this way? The way we think about things as nuts as segregation, like, how could that have existed in our parents' lifetime? How could that have been? Oh, no, that was literally half a generation ago.
Yep.
And now it is unfathomable. I think we will get there, short of some complete destruction of progressive democracy, which, spoiler, we almost ran into. We butted up against some of that ugly stuff, but we overcame it, hopefully.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I guess we will continue to see. But I do think about how much things have changed since I fell in love with games, gosh, I don't know, 30 some odd years ago, I guess now. I mean, yeah, it's...
Dude, there's something I think you'll enjoy. I remember pitching a story, maybe it was a video, to a colleague of ours at our former employee. I was like, it would be awesome if we highlighted 10 video games where the protagonist was female and she's awesome and she kicks ass and she's a great role model. And I don't know that this ever got written, but we were sort of making a list of like Aloy from Horizon and all these different characters. And I feel like my memory was like the pickings were slim. They were slim. And it was sort of this like, hey, we should highlight female video protagonists. We should do that because it's important and the games are good. You'll love them. And now we are drowning in female led and just like, again, I guess to everything we were saying previously, like, here's a game like a Spiritfarer. Stella's here. She's a woman. She appears to be a young woman of color. Not a single thing is mentioned or even referenced about that fact.
Right.
She just is.
And it's like,
and everyone loves the game. It's like an amazing thing.
Yeah, it really is. I tell you what, though, it is. And I've had conversations like this with my husband where I've been like, I have gotten to play in the role of or be surrounded by so many brown people in games in the past couple of years even.
Yeah.
And it's been startling in a good way, because it's firstly made me realize how little that ever happened. And then it's second made me go, oh my gosh, it's happening now though.
Totally.
And in that matter of fact way you just explained, you know, like at no point are you like, you know, Stella is, you know, whatever, fill in the blank, you know, an Indian with this past, blah, 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 blah. It's like she's just a person of color on a ship. Yeah, she's just a person having this adventure. And it's like, oh, that's so nice, you know. I think it was some years ago I played and had so much fun with a game called Swords of Ditto with my husband. Played it couch co-op forever. It was really, really fun. You know, was really excited to be like, oh, I don't just have white characters to choose from. Like, this is kind of continued to be a theme for the last few years, where it's made me extremely thoughtful about the gaming experiences I've had in the past, because it really did make me realize that I was having a new experience by playing protagonists of color. And I was like, this is new, and it should have been here all along, but it's here now. And I'm really grateful it is.
Here's a question that might be interesting to discuss, or it might really lead us nowhere. But if you crack open a game where there is a character creation tool, meaning there's not a canonical protagonist, you design your character. Mm-hmm. How often do you personally design a character that sort of looks and feels adjacent to you, like your own identity, or versus I'm going to play a different gender, I'm going to play a different ethnicity, I'm going to play a wacky hairstyle? Like what how do you come at those games typically?
That's super interesting you say that. So there was a time period in my life, I would say probably like in my 20s to 30s, that I had like kind of a type that I would build in games like that. So when I played MMOs, I would like build this kind of like really tall Amazonian woman with fair skin like me, but she usually had white hair and was like kind of gothy looking, but like with white hair. And I would kind of always build this like, oh, if I was a superhero, I was like, you know, whatever, I would look like this. Right. And then at some point, like in my late 30s, I just started building characters that looked like me.
Interesting.
And I've continued to do that. Like, you know, when Mii's came around, I was like, I'm going to build me. And is it still called a Mii now? Like what you build on like your Switch profile? It still is, right?
It's a great question. I'm so confused by the onion layers of like, your nickname is the nickname on the console, but your account is your account. But then when you go into an online game, it shows your nickname, which is my real fucking name. So that, you know, when I'm playing online, whoopsie, I didn't know that was going to be. And then you have a Mii, but it's not your profile picture. It's like, okay.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, anyway, whatever that is, that looks like me now, and whatever my Oculus profile is called, it looks like me now. So yeah, I don't know what made that shift really, but I usually do build like it's weird, right? It's like I find it rewarding to see a little version of me in a game now. You know, my Animal Crossing character looks like me, for instance.
Yeah. But those are differently. They are social environments in a different way. So let's break it down. A Mii or a Nintendo style, Animal Crossing style, like you are probably going to be interacting with friends and family that you know in real life. So there seems to be it would be strange and perhaps not so great to misrepresent yourself as a different race or gender or whatever in that specific social context. However, you're in a fantasy MMO, dragons, elves, spaceships, whatever.
Sure.
Superheroes. I'm going to be a kick-ass Amazonian warrior with white hair. Of course, because nobody knows who you really are in that social context. You want to be a cool person. And then similarly, but not quite exactly the same, a single player, open world, whatever kind of game where you're designing your character, no other human being will be encountering or experiencing that character, but you want to be, an elf or a dwarf or a Khajiit, as I have created in my newly begun playthrough of Skyrim. Those are different categories of identity in video games, and I think that's pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah, no, I do too. I definitely think that's really cool. And like, I think in a game where I don't have complete control over what to choose, like I can rewind back and say, like Diablo 3, like you can choose a race, but you can't be like, I'm going to have red hair and a piercing on my lip or whatever. Like, I think those are kind of fun because they do encourage you to build something that isn't you, but that is something that like you get to, pretend to be for a while. Yep. So that's cool. I enjoy that. And I haven't done that in a while now that I stopped to think about it. And I kind of like, that would be fun,
Yeah. And I'm also thrilled and hopeful that the days of like, oh, you want to be the lady? Well, you have to be the sorceress or the archer or whatever, like whatever class. Like I want to play this class because that's the class I want to play in whatever the game is. But that class comes with a predefined character. Like that trash is mostly gone, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Evolution, man, change.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's in the right direction for now. Asterisk. Let's hope it stays there. Enough about this social commentary. It's time to talk about something far more important, and that is video games. What is it that you are currently playing?
Well, I hate to say it. I feel a little boring, but it's okay to show up and be like, hey, I'm still playing Animal Crossing and I'm still playing Resident Evil 4. I was talking to my husband about Resident Evil 4 last night, and I was like, I don't know how other people felt about this game. I know people love this game. But I personally find that for myself, as I play it, and I'm playing it in VR, so it's a bit different, I'll kind of like, I find I can play like certain like chunks of it, and then I'll hit a point, and it's a very clear point, which I think is interesting, where I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to play anymore now. And so I'll play, I'm finding myself playing like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to stop now for a while. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's just a game that I do well in chunks. I am still definitely enjoying it. Like, it's interesting to come at a game like that, like a game that is super beloved and super hyped. It's really interesting to come at a game like that and kind of try to imagine what it was like for people when they first experienced it.
Sure. Yep.
Because like for me, I will praise, the original Legend of Zelda Up and Down and to the Moon, right? You've heard it. But like when the Game & Watch just came out that's got Zelda and Zelda 2 on it, I saw a couple of reviews of it. And one reviewer was like, the original Zelda shows its age. And I was like, it's a classic.
I mean,
and then I was like,
it does show its age. Of course it shows its age, but that's not, what do you mean by that? Is that a bad thing? Is that hey, consume this in its cultural, in its, time frame context? You got to qualify that a little bit, I think.
Right. I mean, I kind of agree. It was just interesting because I took the reviewer to be someone younger than me who probably didn't grow up with it and was like, oh yeah, I went back to it and it feels real old. And it made me kind of think about how the time in which you experience a game can kind of like solidify it in your mind in a certain way. And then you really don't see it. It's really hard to see it differently unless it's aged really poorly. But like, I would say that if I was playing regular Resident Evil, that it would feel maybe more aged compared to like, for instance, Village, which I just like, saw played a couple months ago. But in VR, I think it kind of gives it a more it gives it a fresher, newer, more intuitive tone. So I think it's a really interesting, remake. But yeah, like you got to pause and think about it. It's like, oh, this was a GameCube game. It came out in 2005.
I think the arc, the thread of that discussion is like, okay, this game came out in 1984. This game came out in 2005. Here were the limitations. Here were the peers of its time. Holy crap. It's still good. I'm still having fun with it in 2021. That's extraordinary. Or it goes the other way. This game came out in 80, whatever. This game came out in 2005. Oh, it does not work today. I get it. I understand what it was and what it did, but it is not playable or not fun to play in a modern context. Those are two different things. And if it's the former, then that's the headline, not, oh, it's showing its age. It's like, this thing's fucking old as fuck and still good. How is that possible? Or still fun, or still innovative. You know what I mean? And I could count on one hand how many games do that in a given year or a given decade. The Legend of Zelda is one of them. And like, I have nostalgic glasses as much as the next guy. But I go back to games of my childhood, and 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh yeah, this was a good. This remember this start music? Remember this menu? And nope, I'm good. That's it. I got my hit of nostalgia. Yep. The rest of this is trash.
Yep.
Super Mario Brothers doesn't do that. Legend of Zelda doesn't do that. They are still great.
No. I agree. Yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, it's all interesting stuff to think about. It just definitely gave me a moment of pause when I saw that review. It shows its age. I was like, no, it doesn't, but it does.
It does. That's not bad.
But when you're all up in the feels, about such a thing.
But yourself, you say this to my wife at all times. We can have our feelings and we can have those knee-jerk reactions, but we are self-aware people. We can step back and you just did it. You can step back and say like, okay, that was just my feelings. That was just my nostalgia talking. I can step back from myself and say, okay, let's really look at this. Before we jump any further, my other question about Resident Evil for you was, when you say play in chunks or step back, are we saying, oh, I'm done for the night and then you're returning to it tomorrow? Or are you taking longer breaks? And then adjacent question, is it VR? Is it the VR situation? Or is it the game itself? Because I am finding that long as much as I want to stay inside VR, you can't do it it's just tiresome. I don't get nauseous or uncomfortable. I don't physically feel bad. You're just ready to get relaxed. Out. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm on the couch chilling out. I feel like this is a not chore is the wrong word, but I'm very concerned about the space and the tech, and is everything running good, and are the controllers connected and everything. It's a whole shindig as opposed to like, I'm just going to chill out on the couch.
That's a good way of putting it. And like, yeah, for me, there's a couple things. I have to be in the mood to stand up because, like, for instance, I've tried playing, there's a mode to play Resident Evil 4 sitting down. I do not recommend it. At least I hated it because I found that there's a few games where you are moving with a full view of everything around you in VR. And when you are, I find it's really helpful to be able to naturally move your body and head around versus using the controllers to flip yourself around. Like that helps me with immersion and also with motion sickness. Yep. So, but yeah, it's like, okay, I got to be in the mood to play this game that, requires me to stand for a while. And I also have to be cool with wearing the headset, which eventually does feel heavy or cumbersome. I really look forward, and I think we've talked about this, I really look forward to when VR headsets are light and thin and super crisp visually on the inside, because I know they'll get there, but right now they're not there. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait till that's like a thing.
Yeah, man.
Probably in the next 10 years. But
That field of view too, like the feeling where you're not looking through a binoculars, it is it's all around you. Like even in your peripheral vision, it's just, it's like we said, it's a pair of glasses that kind of just wrap around, and that's it, and that's all it is. It's not a headset per se.
Right, exactly. Like that's what I want. But so there's all that, and then there's another thing that this might fall under the realm of accessibility. I'm not really sure, but I have carpal tunnel, as just about anybody that has spent more than 10 years typing on a computer for work will probably tell you they have, and it bothers me when I hold certain things in a position for too long. So if I hold the Switch for a really long period of time and I'm looking down, eventually my hands will start to like, what's the word? Like I kind of experience like numb tingles, like when your foot goes to sleep and in my hands. Yeah. And so after I play Resident Evil...
We call them sprinkles around here. That's my son.
Yeah. I like that. It makes me feel a little happier about something that has prior made me like, I'm old. But
he just like he was younger and he just comes into the room crying and we're like, what happened? Are you hurt? What happened? I have sprinkles in my foot. And we're like, what the fuck? Oh, and then it took us 30 minutes or so to figure out, he sat on his foot and it fell asleep. Sprinkles.
Oh, sprinkles. That makes me feel better a lot, actually.
Please continue.
So yes, after I hold the Oculus controllers for an hour, I get sprinkles in my hands, and then I'm like, gotta stop now because it doesn't feel good. So for forever that is worth.
Question: do you have any sort of case or grip on your Switch handheld when you play handheld, or is it just naked?
Because I play it docked a lot, and I don't have the same trouble when I'm holding a Pro controller, but I do have this trouble when I'm holding the Switch itself. Do you think that would help?
I hate the naked Switch so much, and went the extra mile to get a dockable case. I don't remember which one it is, but it is a case that we never take off because we always use Pro controllers. So we leave the Joy-Cons attached, and then we just slide the cased thing Switch into the dock and take it out. And then the case itself has these big fat grips that I don't know. I haven't touched a naked Switch in so long, but if I did, I'd be like, how the hell do you people do this?
Hook me up with a link to that if you remember, because that might help me. And it also makes me wonder, my Oculus controllers are also naked, so it makes me wonder if maybe adding grips to those could be helpful too. I guess I'll have to experiment and see.
I think I did add grips to my Reverb ones, but it was less about comfort and more like they just felt a little slippery, and I wanted to get some meat on there to grab onto, and then
for sure. I totally get that. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit more hopeful, actually.
Ergonomics,
but I mean, I think I'm on the same page as you about like how long I can play VR, and I can't sit in there for like a super long period of time for that reason being one of a few, I suppose.
One day though, within 5 years, we're gonna.
I hope so.
I haven't done this in 1,000 years, but there are those days those Sundays or whatever the day is where it's like no responsibility, no work, no obligations, and you just play, whatever, Breath of the Wild for 8 hours in the day. You get up to pee and get a sandwich or whatever, but that's it. But now, and so those are special, just pure relaxation days. Now imagine if you could do that in a virtual world. You're just like, today I'm going to be in the Caribbean, and you're just in there the whole day or a huge chunk of the day. We're obviously not there, but maybe we'll be there 5 years.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you think about it, that really is, Ready Player One. That's, basically what it was about. And I think that is probably also what people that are, campaigning about the metaverse are also thinking about. But unfortunately, I think their vision is a little different than, I could dedicate an entire show to the metaverse, and we probably should, I guess. But I'm kind of wary because I don't want to be incredibly negative the whole show, and I'm going to be.
As you should be. I mean, we could touch on it, get into it. Maybe we should dedicate a whole episode, but like one company saying we are the interoperability company where everything connects to everything, that right there, that's a full stop for me. I am excited if your game interfaces with my game, and then I can also play Spotify and watch YouTube. Like, or let me put it a different way. I don't know where I heard this, but like, we already have the metaverse. It's called the World Wide Web. Anyone can put anything they want on it, and you can use a standard browser, a protocol called HTTP, hypertext, and you can access all of it, none of it, one page or 10,000 page. Like, that is the metaverse. We've had it for 25 years, but
not in VR.
But point being, we should build the metaverse in an open way, and Mark Zuckerberg will build it in a Facebook way, and that is and pump advertising into it, and that is the wrong way to do it, in my, again, very humble opinion. And I don't think you'll disagree too much.
Nope, I don't. But yeah, no, I do think that I think it is possibly worth its own episode. But we can talk about it at some point. But I want to quickly sum up the only other thing that I've been playing, which really doesn't need a ton of explanation because it's still Animal Crossing. But I think the thing that I wanted to quickly express about it, and if I've said this last week, please stop me, is that I've noticed kind of a similar feeling of pleasure and satisfaction out of the new Animal Crossing. I don't really want to call it DLC, but it is either, if you upgraded your online subscription, you got it for free, or I think you can pay $30 additional for it. But it's basically like the Happy Home Designer expansion that allows you to design vacation homes.
Yeah, this is the DLC. And just to clarify, what you are currently enjoying is 2.0, which was the free update, and you also purchased the DLC expansion. Is that correct?
Yeah. So like the stuff that you can do on your own island, and then like, you can go to Captain's, trips, like he'll take you to a new island, getting the roots, all that stuff was free. Like that was just regular update stuff. And then, and that stuff's cool. I don't think it would have kept me for like a super long period of time, honestly.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's cool,
this is funny.
But I would have been like, oh, well, here's the thing. I played so obsessively in the year 2020 that I paid off Tom Nook in full. And I did like the stock market, but I did it in like an insane person way. And I think I have 5 or 6 million bells.
We did the same thing. My wife did the same thing, but I'm eager to hear more about what you are doing now, because my wife is back in there, just like you, 100% committed every single night, going back to it. However, has not touched the DLC all. Is fully engaged with just the new items, new farming, new recipes, new islands, she's all about collecting, and she's been trying to get all the crops and stuff, and was hunting for, I think, carrots or something. It was like the last food ingredient item. And then she ended up trading for it. And I'm like, we're back to June 2020 in the best possible way, without, with slightly less pandemic, of course.
Yes. Hurrah for that. So that definitely that. I am a little different of a player. My favorite aspect of Animal Crossing is designing homes, like designing my house and collecting things. So for me, it was absolutely, I can decorate these homes. And then that became, I can decorate these homes, and they supply all of the stuff that you're going to need for each home. So like an example would be, you go to the island, they're like, we need this person to design it to you, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, why don't you go talk to this guy? He wants a vacation home. And so you go and you talk to the guy, and the guy's like, oh yeah, I really love toilets, which this is literally a real level you can design, where he's like, I want a vacation home where I can poop in peace, basically. And you're like, okay, we're going to do it.
This sounds like when you let a 7-year-old design her own house in Animal Crossing. just like, those toilets that open up when you walk by them. She's got like 12 of them lined up in like a toilet parade on the beach. So anytime you go down to her house, it's a big toilet, hurrah there.
Well,
so
let me tell you, if she ever comes across this particular expansion of the game, she's going to be delighted, because an actual villager, not one that lives on your island, at least to start with, you can later invite them via Amiibo, or you can go and give them like a little chocolate box, and they'll be like, "Oh, I want a vacation home. Should I come to your job?" And you're like, "Yes." Great. But yeah, someone will actually be like, "I want you to design a toilet paradise for me," and you're like, "Okay, sweet." This is happening. So far I have designed a work away from home, so an office. I've designed a toilet paradise. I've designed a mushroom forest. Let me tell you, that was really interesting. I just made a cafe for Marshall, who is my favorite villager, and that was the best, because I made something I would want to go hang out at. Like, some of them you're like, it's not really my thing. You know, like the one I did before that was like, I want a board game palace. I'm like, okay, so like I built, and the stuff they gave you was very like, I don't know, kind of like Bachelor Guy. Like, I thought it was really interesting that you had to build a board game palace, but the only bed you could use was like a messy, unmade bed. And the only sink you could build was like a sink full of dishes. I was like, what are you trying to say about people that play board games, Nintendo? I see what you're doing there.
Yeah. But I'm offended.
Like, and then as it goes on, then the happy home designer, like place you work for, they're like, this island is really coming together. Like, we think we should build some facilities for all the people that live here. So then you get to start making stuff like the schoolhouse. And
that's right.
So there's so much. I have a friend who just crossed his 20th. He was telling me last night, his 20th thing that he built. And he was like, I'm still going. And now you can like scan in Amiibo and like invite VIP, and you can like do all this stuff for them. And I was like, this is really a lot of content.
It's great.
Like, I'm impressed with how much content it is. I know that it's like the end of the content. Like, I know after this, they were like, no, we're not doing any more. They got to go work on the next Animal Crossing. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But
here's an interesting omission that I don't know how much this has been discussed or reported, but I did pick up on it. They said specifically in the Direct, 2.0 is our last free update for the game, and announcing this paid DLC. And everyone's like, wow. They never said this is our last paid DLC. So like 6 months from now, 8 months from now, if you want to give me another $20 DLC, let's go.
Absolutely. I would do it. I mean, I know there have been other Happy Home Designer games. I think there was if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a standalone one for one of like their portable consoles, right?
That sounds right.
DS maybe. Let's see, Happy Home Designer. Okay, so I think Happy Home Designer was 3DS. I never bought it. I don't know why. Like, looking at it at a glance, I'm like, why didn't you go play this? This is so you. So this is my first experience of like decorating the houses, but it reminded me kind of what it was like to unpack and unpacking. Like, this goes here and this goes here. And I like the idea of this going here. And like, I'm starting to get to the point where I spend like an hour making someone's house. At first, the houses were much smaller, but now you can like add levels and add partitions and you can do all this stuff. And like, it's so mellow, right? And so it's like, this is so nice, So like, I'll probably finish the podcast with you today, and then I'll like go and figure out what dinner's going to be. And then I'll like chill and like build a house for an hour and just kind of enjoy. Oh, and another point is that for each home you do, you unlock all of the items that you could potentially put in the home.
This is my question about that, actually. That sounds limiting, and it sounds a little boring to me, meaning the fun of Animal Crossing to me was what's going to be in the shop tomorrow. This everything sucks, but this one thing is great and I need the money for it and I got to acquire it. And then you slowly make you create perfectness out of a slow grind. This is like, here's a bunch of stuff, just plop it in on the floor in any order and then you win. Like, is that all that's going on? I mean,
kind of like, okay, so each client will say like, this is my vision. I want to live in a toilet paradise. And then they'll give you like a little checklist and you have to use 3 items they ask for. Only 3. So it's like, okay, this person wants a golden toilet, a toilet scrubber, and like a poop rug. And you're like, okay, neat. So you have to put those in your design. If you don't, and you go to them and you tell them the design's done, they'll go, oh, but what happened to this and this that I wanted? Otherwise, you can do whatever you want. You can literally put just those 3 items in, and probably, I've never tried this, but you can probably
and cement walls and you're done.
Right. And they'll be like, I'm so happy. But I don't do that. I enjoy it and I do what I want to do. And then when I give it to them, they're like, oh, it's so beautiful. I love it. But this was actually, I was thinking about this and I'm not sure if it's last week or the week before, we talked about sandbox games. You were like, is there a sandbox game you like? And I said, well, Animal Crossing counts as a sandbox game, right?
Yes, 400%.
And I realized that this is the perfect crossover of my idea of fun sandbox, which is a crossover of the sandbox game style and interior designing. Mm-hmm. Like that for me is fun. And I realized the interior design part was fun for me when I was playing Unpacking. So now I'm like, oh, I've been wondering how to find other stuff that's kind of like Unpacking. And this isn't really like it, but it's scratching like an itch that I find to be somewhat similar.
It is interesting. This DLC, Happy Home, actually kind of is like Unpacking and a bit unlike Animal Crossing, as we were just saying. Like, Animal Crossing is slowly discovering little dribs and drabs of the world, and this is like, here's a. It's not a puzzle because the solution is very apparent, but it is put everything where it goes. It doesn't matter where you put it; just put it where it looks nice. Mm-hmm. And more or less, that is also what Unpacking is too. And it's very funny that these two things have now appeared before us at the same time.
I know. I've been like, yay. But I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. So that is really nice. And yeah, maybe like you said, not for everyone. That might be boring to you and like exciting to me. No,
you know what though? But you've clarified. I thought it was like, here's Marshall's house. Here's 20 Marshall items. Put them wherever you want, and then you're done. But what you're actually saying is, only 3 items are required. Here's the big catalog of 1,000 items. You can pick anything. You could make the walls a tropical rainforest as long as it has the 3 toilet things, right?
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that better.
But with each thing you do, you only have a set amount of items that you can potentially use. But if you want to, you can also go back into any of the other items that you opened with the other homes. So like the selection gets bigger and bigger slowly as you go. But to answer that question, no, you don't have everything open like right off the top.
So there is a progression. Like, I guess that's what I was looking for, is like, I want some sort of progression system, even if it's chill.
It does. I mean, eventually, like, you start out just building that little box square house. And then you're like, oh, and now you can do this. You can, whatever. You can add a partition. You can now adjust the size of the house. You can now decorate the outside. You can now build a schoolhouse. Like every time you do one, something changes.
Great.
But I don't know. Great. Like, I wonder if I'd be interested to hear from like male players. Like, is this something that appeals to women, or like, do male players really enjoy the decorating too? Because like my friend who I just mentioned that just passed his 20th house, he's a guy and he's like obsessed.
Yeah. Decorating the house was my main quest, I would say, in New Horizons. Was I'm trying to acquire the stuff to make this room look awesome. And then, interestingly, like once all the rooms were done, I really had no motivation to go back and update anything or change anything. And I think we mentioned it previously, like some smart person at Nintendo was like, why did people not like anyone stopped? Like, I'm sure millions of people are still playing Animal Crossing, but like people stopped because they were done. They completed everything. They were rich. They had 5 million bells. There was nothing more to do, to achieve. And they said, what if we just let you do this thing you loved 20 more times? And everyone was like, yes, please. I would love that.
Like, and when I look at Happy Home Designer, the original 3DS game, I realized that all they did was kind of graft a modern one onto New Horizons, but it's kind of genius. Like, it used to be a separate game. And then they were like, oh, we're just going to add this to what we already built, which to me makes a ton of sense. And like, I will be very excited about being able to do this in the next Animal Crossing game because I've enjoyed it so much in this one. I'm not sure how they'll make it different to where it'll appeal to me, but I mean, I might as well say that about every Animal Crossing because I've played most of them. And like every time I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to owe Tom Nook a bunch of money and I'm going to pay him off like every time.
Yeah. I wish, I kind of wish New Horizons became the live service game that it could have been. Like the updates were so exciting, what's going to be in the next holiday thing or whatever. And that was so much fun, even if they were very simple things, and then expansions and new mechanics and the coffee shop and all these things. I wish that would go on for 5 years, and that there was a team at Nintendo dedicated to like, how can we keep it fresh, even if it's just like, hey, we added 400 new lines of dialogue for your villagers. That's it. There's nothing else to do. But if you go in your town, there's going to be goings on, in December.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I was actually just saying to the same friend who built the 20 houses, like, well, Christmas is coming. Are they going to do Christmas stuff? Like, because last year they did, they've done seasonal things, right?
But it'll just be the same thing that happened last year. Like, nothing new will happen. It will be the same as last year. And so, I mean, look, sorry, I only got 700 hours of playing out of this game. That's how dare you, Nintendo. But, it is just so interesting to me. Like, it is not the same kinds of games, but the Destinies and the Warframes and the Simses of the world, they just keep going and going and going. And either you buy it once and you're in that ecosystem forever, enjoying the new content, and that gets other people to play and buy or whatever, or you sell DLC. And really, again, if I had 700 hours and you're saying $20 will buy me 300 more hours, like, hell yeah. And I'll continue paying for my online subscription because I want to play with my friends and visit their islands, whatever. Like, there is a live service model in this Animal Crossing thing that they're sort of doing, but I wish they would go super hard. I wish they would go balls out on this.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could, like, and I wonder if that's what they were trying to do with the phone game. Which I felt like it was lacking something, but it was really hard for me to put my finger on what it was. I found that like I kind of got to a point where it was repetitive, but I was like, well, isn't Animal Crossing in its nature repetitive? And I was like, okay, so I still can't figure out what exactly it was about it that like because I played it and I definitely tried to love it. And like, it didn't stick with me long term.
I did not. This is Pocket Camp, right?
Yeah.
I did not dabble in Pocket Camp, but I remember some criticism of New Horizons. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, why can't we do XYZ in New Horizons? The fucking mobile game has it. It was something about online or trading or some system that was like, oh yeah, like a robust online functionality was built into this mobile app, but they somehow left it out of New Horizons. And I was like, Pocket Camp might be a little Marvel, might be a little ahead of its time in its own way, but did not have the full, Animal Crossing experience that maybe you were craving, that I was certainly hoping for when New Horizons came out. It's interesting. Yeah. It used to be such a random niche game, and then it fucking took over the world. Like,
it did. And it's like, it went from being like, oh, this is like this nerdy thing I enjoy, to like everyone plays. You know, like it's like not weird at all for you to be like, oh, I don't play anything but Animal Crossing I play. And you're like, wow.
Yep.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, to say the least.
I love it. Did I ever mention, I don't know what I have a bunch of old video game consoles in the basement, none of them plugged in or functional, just like, you know, they're nice to look at. And some are from yard sales and thrift stores, and some are my old ones. And I have my old GameCube, and I have the box and the I guess it's a disc, right, for GameCube, of the original Animal Crossing for game. Right? Oh no, I'm sorry. It's either N60, because N64 was the original the original Western Animal Crossing, right?
Yes. Wait. GameCube? Wait. I might be wrong. I thought the first one was GameCube in America.
Either way, it's one of the two, and it's whatever one. I think N64 was the first one. But anyway, I opened up the box, and there was let's say the disc for Animal Crossing game is there. And then there's a slot for a memory card. And there was a memory card in this jewel case or a DVD case or whatever you call it. And I was like, oh shit, my Animal Crossing village from 20 years ago is still alive on this memory card. And this was before New Horizons came out, and my daughter was like super hyped, and we were both so excited about Horizons coming out. I was like, oh my God, what if I turned on this game and go back 20 years to this village? And so sadly, it was like, I guess, the wrong data card. I must have had two memory cards. One had the Animal Crossing save on it, and the other just had other saves on it, whatever, Wind Waker or whatever the heck else. And I just was rummaging through all this old games crap to find this second memory card that somehow has this world on it, and just could not locate it. Perhaps it was lost or donated or sold or whatever. And it was a real bummer, because the idea of opening it back up and going back and knowing that the villagers would be like, it's been 6,000 days since you've been here. What the fuck? And it being alive like that is like, I don't know. There was something in me that really wanted to see that. And it's a little sad that it's gone. It is somewhere in the world, never to be accessed again.
Aww.
But one of our first villagers, by random chance, was Pee-wee, the gorilla, who absolutely was part of my first Animal Crossing village. I saw him, and I'm like, I swear to God, that Pee-wee was in my original town. So, fate,
to say the least. By the way, can you hear that screaming cat in the background?
Not at all.
Okay, that's great. We'll move on then. I'll ignore him if you will.
You heard it. You heard it, listeners. Pay no attention to the screaming cat behind
the curtain. Pay no attention.
I am just thrilled that you're like in this super chill zen Animal Crossing place back as God intended.
I'm very into it, and I'm looking forward to doing it again tonight, because it's starting to get cool. We're not in winter, but like it's colder at night here. We're starting to hit 40s, and I think we've had a couple of 30s, and it's really nice to like get cozy, wrap up in a blanket, like make myself a little decaf coffee or a tea or something, and like just build and just it's so nice. It is, so I'm digging it.
It is inside times. It is indoor times now, ladies and gentlemen. So fire up those cozy games. Let's do it.
Well, but we haven't talked about what you're playing.
Well, not a huge amount to report, but I will say that I have completed Metroid Dread.
Oh, nice.
And it reminded me that like, I don't It's a symptom of our time, I suppose. Like, I can't remember the last game I rolled credits on. It's been a while. You know, we've talked about this of like, we've had a whole episode of like games we regret not finishing, even if we love them. And I really pushed through to finish Dread with minimal guide lookups, minimal spoiler lookups and such. I did poke around here and there being like, I am missing something and I just want to get to the next step and what the fuck, and, you know, kind of peeked ahead so I could get through it. But I will say that Dread is a masterclass in difficulty.
Really?
Extraordinary, because you encounter a boss fight. And this will contain no spoilers whatsoever, because Metroid is super loose sci-fi. It's not very it's not Star Warsian or Game of Thronesian. There's not you know, it's space and there's bugs and there's evil parasites, and it's fairly loose and fairly dumb, but you're not there for like a complicated story.
Right.
You're just there to kick ass. And if you know the other Metroid games, it's actually very cool what they have laid out here, because in previous games there are very mysterious things and very mysterious statues and creatures and things that are never explained. And in Dread, it's like, here we are. Here's all this stuff. Here's all this stuff that was going on in the background, and the big bad villain is not who you think it is. And so great twists and turns in a very simple story. So I was very thrilled as a Metroid fan to return to that. And then it's just extraordinary, because you encounter a boss, any boss, and you get into that room and you're like, how the instantly die. How the fuck could I ever even get 2 hits on this thing? There's no way. And your gamer reflexes, your gamer response is like, I almost curl up into a Dark Souls recoil of like, I'm just going to hit my head against this wall and it's going to be frustrating. And this is the boss that's going to make me quit this game. And I guess I'm never going to finish Dread. So you go back in and you're like, oh, he's kind of like, all right, he kind of does this wind up for the swing. And if I use this new ability that I just got, I can kind of like get around that. Okay. Oh, well, it's super hard, but at least I know that move now. Okay, let me try again. Mm-hmm. And the loading times are quick. It drops you right back at the door right before the boss. So you're dying quickly. You you go right to the entrance. You're back in the boss, and it's like, all right, let me just try it again. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, what about this? Oh, I could dodge this way. Wait a minute, and you start from encounter 1 as like, there is no effing way in this universe that I could overcome this boss. And by the 5th time, you're like, oh yeah, I got this guy. I got it. All right, cool. Wait, oh, I died? Totally cool, because I know exactly why I died. I know exactly how to avoid the death. And now I'm going to get him. And you can go in 7, 10, 20 more times, but it is not frustrating, because every time you go in, you learn something more.
I think that really matters. I really do, because I actually had a really similar experience with a specific fight in Resident Evil 4 where you're running up to like an old cabin and you get like bombarded by like dozens upon dozens of well, they're not zombies, but I forget what they call them. But at any rate, I was like, first like 3 or 4 times, I was like, what am I doing wrong? And it was annoying, because I was just like, ugh. Like, this is really kind of killing me a little bit. And then I was like, so I had to die 3 or 4 times. And then by the 4th time, it was clicking. And I was like, if I do think that it is really important to be able to like pause and go back, or like maybe get your butt kicked a few times. And it made me think a little bit about what like the appeal of the Dark Souls, like, get your butt kicked, but then like think about it until like your brain clicks into the thing that you need to do. But the exception for me is if it never clicks. And then if it never clicks, then I'm like, ugh, and then I'm like out.
And then you wonder, is the game not communicating the missing piece to me, or am I an idiot and I'm totally missing a signpost here? And when you don't know, then it's like, all right, how much more energy will I put into this? Will I just look up the guide or watch it on YouTube so that I can just skip ahead?
Right.
And I was so impressed with how Dread handles that. It was so unobvious, and then it slowly becomes obvious. And again, unlike a Dark Souls, unlike a boss rush kind of game, where it's not about. I'll walk it back slightly. You do have to be very good and very twitchy and very fast with Metroid Dread. It is a hard, challenging game. Like, you have to be good at games to do this. But I do feel it's different from Hollow Knight or different from Dark Souls in, like, I don't have to get good. I just have to realize how to use my abilities correctly. And it goes from like, oh, I'm physically not good enough at this game to overcome this boss, to like, oh, phase 1 through 3 of this boss is literally nothing to me. It is nothing. It is so easy now because I know how to do it.
Right. Yeah, no, that I agree. And I guess a different type of gamer is appealed to by those two different types of approaches, right? But like,
totally.
Yeah, like, I totally get that there are gamers that are like, well, I'm going to work on this and get strong enough until I can do it. And I, as you may already know, have little to no patience because I have ADHD as a disability. And so my patience sucks. And I was completely shocked to learn that in fact was a very typical ADHD thing, because our brains don't supply the things that help, people process waiting and patience. I was like, oh, well, that's a relief. I'm not just an asshole. But at any rate, yeah, like, I'm just not, I'm going to be like, I don't have time for that. Like if it's gonna, but not, but knowing that about myself now, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's okay.
Right. You know what to play and what not to play. You do the homework ahead of time. And I kept envisioning Metroid Dread's difficulty as a perfect curve, especially for brains like ours, because it never plateaus, or it never drops off a cliff where it's like, oh, now you're at the wall. It kept climbing that perfect curve. Like, let me go again. And it never got boring, and it never got frustrating. With some exceptions.
That is really hard. In my opinion, that's really hard to execute.
Really? Yes. Incredible.
Like, I mean, it was funny. The Game Award nominations just came out, and a lot of people were like, oh, Returnal wasn't on it. Like, Returnal was snubbed. And I was like, Returnal is a terrific game, beautiful game, a game that just completely awed me and stunned me. But like, for myself, it was I wasn't able to go up to its challenge and get further, even though I desperately wanted to. So as much as I want to be like, man, what a great game. Yes, it should absolutely win awards for its vision, but like, it alienated me. And I didn't want it to. So I thought that was really interesting to think about. Like, oh, wow. Well, does that mean that the game design is not good? I mean, it definitely means it's an inclusive, specific type of game for a specific type of audience.
Right. Our queues, our game queues, are littered with games that we love that we just did not have the patience or time to see through. And that I am frustrated by that. I'm frustrated. If I don't like a game, then good riddance. But I'm frustrated when I love a game that just, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm still sad about it. Like, I still think about it sometimes, and then I'm like I literally played that first biome dozens and dozens of times, and I kept thinking, oh, like, I'm going to keep kind of pushing away at this because I feel like if I do, maybe I can like crack it, but it was a matter of my skills. It was not a matter of me cracking it. It was a matter of I simply wasn't ever fast enough, and I wasn't good enough at dodging like bullet hell style attacks. I've never really liked those type of games anyway. So I wasn't good enough. And there hit a point where I felt bad about not being good enough. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to quit, you know? And I wish I didn't have to, because I really wanted to know that story. But
yeah. Forgive me, I have to open a bag of Ritz Bits cheese and crackers for my children here. So this is some ASMR for everybody.
This is reality, listeners. This is real. This is reality. My screaming cat, which you can't hear, I don't know how, because he is so loud.
Not at all.
It's amazing because he is.
Oh wait, I heard him.
Yeah, I was gonna say he is just screaming. Yeah, but he's like, wait, I can yell louder.
Wait, you're not hearing me? I can go bigger.
Yeah, actually, sometimes when he yells, he kind of sounds like he's saying "wow." And so Patrick and I have this kind of ongoing joke where we'll be like, "Oh man, we got to get home from feed the cats," and one of us or both of us will be like, "Wow," because he sounds just like that, and he's wowing as we speak. Sorry, Ender, we got to make fun of you, buddy. Wow, poor Wow.
Poor Wow. You should rename him or give him a middle name.
Poor little Wow.
So
poor Wow.
Power through Dread. If you got stuck or whatever, and no shame. Look up a guide just to. I looked up a guide for the end boss just because I was like, is this going to take me 3 hours or is this going to take me 1? Like, I needed to know to plan my evening, and so I just got a sense of like, all right, this is what to expect, and then really got in a rhythm. Oh my god! This is something I thought of you and wanted to tell you. Metroid Dread is a rhythm game.
What?
Fight me, world.
How?
It is it is a Metroid game, so it's about exploration and whatever, but every boss fight is a rhythm game because it is about extreme pattern recognition and flow, and it is about countering the move and jumping and dodging at precise moments again, it's not synced to music, but you just see the animations of the boss. Again, it is totally unfathomable at first. You're like, how the hell? And then it becomes music that you're just like, do, 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 nice. do, 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 boom, got him, done.
That is super cool.
In a way that no other Metroid game is. It's so rhythmic. And it just floored me. I was just like, wow, they really did something pretty special here. Innovative is a strong word because it's, we've been fighting bosses in phases, pattern recognition bosses since the dawn of video games, but this one has a special rhythm.
I like that. That's pretty awesome. Yep. I mean, if you pause and think about it, and I often think about this, I don't know about you. I'm kind of like, man, I'm like, if you think about it, Nintendo has really been reinventing the same series of games over and over and over, a new Zelda, a new Mario, a new Metroid. And it's like, they've been doing this now for what? How many decades? Like 3 decades, 4? I don't know. And it's like, we still get so excited to return to those worlds. And I think that there's a talent in that, I mean, some people might say, oh, it's just because, we're dorks and we buy the same stuff over and over and over. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I personally think the design is pretty, like, for instance, the fact that you mentioned that it never felt like you never felt stuck. Mm-hmm. You always felt like you could move forward. I think that is really memorable, to me, that's great game design.
Nintendo is mostly good at keeping their franchises fresh. Not you can't win them all, but in recent history, more home runs than strikeouts, and it's great because we are nerds who love these franchises and worlds and characters. Like, keep them coming.
It is true. Huzzah.
One last thing I will say is that I have begun, and I want to say mostly, I would say I'm 2/3 of the way through Unpacking, as you have prescribed and recommended. And I'm not going to rehash everything you said because, it is a wonderful, extraordinary game that you have talked at length about. You can go back a couple episodes to hear that if you're new. I don't want to spend my whole chunk here criticizing it because it is, like I said, is wonderful, wonderful, special, great game that I'm loving and enjoying. The only other things I will say are that I don't feel compelled to make everything perfect or design the room in a way that's like, this has to perfectly go here because I want it to be here. I'm finding I'm 70% making things looking nice, and then the other 30% I'm just like, okay, come on, just get this fucking thing on a table, and if it's okay on a table, then we're done here. Moving on to the next room because I just want to kill these boxes and get shit where it goes. And then when you first brought this game to my attention, I said, "Is it a puzzle game?" And you're like, "Not really. There are certain objects that must go in certain rooms and certain places. There are certain objects with certain criteria." And so the puzzle aspect to me is like, hey, all right, everything's unpacked, but there's a towel. I got to put this towel somewhere, and it's telling me I can't just throw it on the floor. So I have to find the correct place to put it.
Sure.
And I kind of like that, but I'm also finding it a little bit, some of them I'm finding a little bit tedious because sometimes it's like, oh, this is fine here. Why the hell can't I get this in the drawer or whatever? But that's what the gameplay is. So I'm not, it's really more of a me problem. It's not a fair criticism.
I don't think it's a criticism as much as it's the way that you interpret the game differently as a player than I do, for instance. Like, I think when I talked about it, I was like, this really scratches my itch to organize obsessively. And so it's perfect for me. But like, not everyone has that same itch, I
do. I think I do. And I guess I don't know what it is. I think it's that Animal Crossing factor too, of like, I want infinite sandbox, and then from that infinity I will pull together the perfect organizational thing for me or my character or my fantasy house or whatever. And this is more like, all right, here are the things, please put them where they go. And I totally get it, and I really am enjoying it, but it's not exactly, it is not 100% my jam. It is 84%. You know what I mean?
But that's fine. I mean, take what you like and leave the rest, right? Like,
totally.
So, I mean, I think it's perfectly cool to, like certain elements of a game. And, we've talked about this, right? About how you kind of have this weird guilt feeling sometimes when people are like, this is so great. And you're like, what?
And it is so great. Unpacking is such a great game, and I really am loving all of my time with it. And absolutely zero spoilers, but just the way this story is told through objects is
yes,
objects and settings.
Question: Go. What room are you on? Like what section are you on?
I am at. I'm going to try to frame this without spoiling anything, but well into adulthood, and sort of the second, based on what I'm gleaning from the story, the second and better relationship.
Nice. Okay. Awesome.
And that's where I currently am.
Awesome.
And I'm very eager to see where things go from there. And my only other little note here, and this is because, again, I'm a diseased person, but like, this is a 2-dimensional pixel art game with almost no motion, and yet when I scroll the mouse, and I'm playing on Switch, so results may vary, when I move the mouse across the playing field or I switch between rooms, minor frame hitches. And again, it has no impact on gameplay, but like,
But you're a diseased person, so we got to talk about this.
Why? How can I play Skyrim or Mario Kart on this game, but like a bathroom and a living room can't like scroll from one side to the screen to the other side without like I don't understand. I don't understand game development. I don't understand what blocks this thing from happening. But that's all I'll say. It, again, has zero impact on the ability to enjoy it, but I am hyper aware of it, and it bothers me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't see it. I think I am at a point where I am starting to realize that you see something that the average human does not see.
100%.
And to me, to be honest, that is it's really easy to be like, oh, well, Matt, like, you're a diseased person. But in reality, I think that that's an accessibility issue that like has to be considered. It might not come across that way, but it's like, that's a good point. That's a problem you're having, that like, you can't be the only one to have that.
No, I'm not the only one, because I will find people on the internet who do complain about it, like I think about it, but they're so few.
Well, I don't think that means it's lesser, though. I just think that means that it's funny. I think I told you this, but like in my last time that I job searched, I said to some of the people that I interacted with, I said, well, what's your policy? What do you do for your neurodivergent employees? And they were like, right. But I think the only way to change the world is to ask those questions, like meaning finding the right space in which to bring up things like that, so people realize, no matter how small, of a thing like it might be, no matter how few people experience it, I still think that it's important, right? So I
very much appreciate that framing and you saying that, but I'm also, I don't know where the line is. It's like if someone brings you, I can't even think, a beautiful turkey dinner on Thanksgiving, and they've worked so hard to cook this all day, and it's amazing and it's delicious and it's so elaborate and good, and all the sides are there. And then here's me at the table being like, well, this little edge here, this tiny little piece that I could cut off and throw away, that doesn't affect the meal at all. It's a little burnt. So all I can think about is this tiny little burnt piece.
I'm actually curious. I get it. And I think I can see how it would be really easy for you to like give yourself a really hard time about this. Totally get that. Another thought I'm having is that I wonder if that's some expression of ADHD as well.
I think so.
Like for me, like, and I've talked about this before, like one of the things that was so satisfying about Unpacking was making things perfect. I know that's a thing that I do in my home at times. And I have sometimes noticed myself doing it and gone, oh God, why do you do this? Well, I mean, I think it's just one of the things that I do to feel comfortable in my environment. And I could go into all kind of things about what I think that's about, but I'm not gonna. But it could very well be something that helps you feel comfortable, or not comfortable, something that definitely catches your eye that the average person doesn't see. And I think that matters.
It is, you're nailing it, really. It is about comfort, and it is about perfection. I feel like the experience that I'm embarking on should be a perfect one from a performance point of view. And I'm asking too much, because no art is perfect, no game is perfect, but I really find myself gravitating toward experiences. I mean, maybe I've said that, like certain game engines and certain implementations of environments, like Deep Rock Galactic, which is a phenomenal. It is just a great game, full stop. But like, that thing doesn't blink an eye. It is procedurally generated caves. It is a huge world. You're playing with 4 players. It's bullets and guns and bugs and enemies and explosions and mine heads and ammo. It's like crazy amount of shit going on. It is just this smooth, buttery, perfect, like not a single technical flaw in this game environment. And I can't believe that they pulled it off. It's not, I think it's a substantial shop that puts it together, but it's not, EA or Blizzard. It's an indie team that made a great game.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're finding the satisfaction of that in some games, then that must mean that there are some games that, like, there's a difference, right, between the games that are able to achieve it and the games that aren't. I think it would be interesting to kind of, I don't know, like try to describe that for other people who, like, maybe there's people, and maybe the podcast like helps people like understand that too, because I mean, I would assume that, like, you're saying, well, other people don't notice these things, so like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's like, well, it might very well be that you're stumbling into something that a lot of people don't experience, but also hasn't been talked about that much. And maybe those people, like, need to know that there are others out there experiencing it. I don't know. I have a lot of different ways of thinking of this stuff, I guess. But
no, I appreciate that. And I don't want to ruin any experiences for other people. That's important to me. And also, what else what would satisfy me is just, I would love to know why, from a technological standpoint, of like, how does a 3D game running at 2K resolution perform flawlessly on a mid-level machine, but a 2D pixel art game has trouble? What is going on technologically? Because these are obviously built from different building blocks. They are built on different engines. They are built from a different structure or procedure. Where's the breakdown on number 2? And I'm not saying that of like, I'm not trying to say to any like game developer, like, where did you go wrong? Where did you mess up? I just I would be able to make peace with the final product if I knew technologically, like, hey, what's going on here? And then maybe a developer could say, yeah, man, everything's working great except for this one little thing. And if we tried to troubleshoot that or fix that, it would blow up the whole thing. So we made a choice to leave that alone because 99% of people won't notice it. And then I could be like, there's a reason. There's a fucking reason. It's not the Switch. It's not my computer. It's not whatever. There's a real reason this is happening. Right. That would satisfy me, but I can never know because I just don't. How often do you talk to the creator of the game that you're playing? You rarely do. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we get lucky sometimes on this show, and sometimes
yes,
we do.
Yeah, we do. But that's it. And the last thing I mentioned it previously is that I am pretty pumped to be returning to Skyrim. I have not played it in 10 years. It is the 10-year anniversary 11/11/11. I remember very clearly working at another company, and we didn't cover games per se, but a variety of people in the office were like, yep, going to Best Buy, I'm going to GameStop, and goodbye for the week. I am off on vacation to play Skyrim. And I was just like, yeah, man, see you on the other side. Can't wait. And I did end up getting on the PC because it has survival mechanics that I really want to get into. It has all the DLC that I never played. It has other like mods that were made by players, but then officially incorporated by Bethesda into the game, like fishing and like I think the survival mode, and you can purchase a backpack where you can carry camping supplies and things like that, stuff that was all modded in, that they were like, you know what, this should be official content now. So I really like that, and my plan is to not pursue the main storyline. My plan is to just wander around in the wilderness and see what happens in Skyrim for a couple months. This might be my winter game, and that's what I'll be doing for the foreseeable future. So
that sounds I'll delightfully cozy. So what you're saying is the next time we have the conversation of what are we playing, you're going to be like Skyrim. Maybe Skyrim. Still Skyrim.
Still Skyrim. Skyrim will be the big game, and then I will be, perhaps I'll be returning to other things on the Switch or checking out smaller experiences on the Switch here and there. That will be on the trajectory here.
Yeah, I guess you have to have some breaks to kind of, okay, but because like me, you're like, ooh, there's a game. Ooh, game.
Yeah.
It's like Squirrel, but game.
Yep. It's bad. It's bad and good.
Oh man. Another delightful week of chat. That's what I have to say.
That's correct. Thank you for hanging out with us. We would like to hear from you. Please hop on into the Discord. There is a link in the show notes. It's where we talk about whatever we're playing, and we talk about what's going on in your favorite game worlds. Live service, single player, multiplayer, game nights, virtual reality, all the things. We'd like to hear from you. So hop on in there. Email us at haveenteredthechat@gmail.com. Tweet at us. You'll find those links below. And that's about it. Any final words before we get out of here?
I'm going to go as soon as we are finished here. And I'm going to start building another person's vacation home in Animal Crossing. Yes. And I never thought I would be so excited to do such menial work for someone else, but I'm into it.
Bless up.
The literal best answer. Bless.
We'll see you next week. Bye.